like the moon and the stars and the sky and the sea. Yeah, it feels so sweet. How the days are long, but they don't feel long. Like the years that have gone by don't feel gone. Like there's bumps and stones on the road we're on, but it don't feel wrong. Some days feel tragical, bleak and black magical. All the snakes and the snails and the frogs and the freaks. I can't promise miracles, but one thing's empirical. I will walk beside you silently. But when the day's so hard, like the life you live when you feel like dying, and the truth you tell when you feel like lying, like a song you sing when you feel like crying, feel like crying. Oh, come on, man. Hey, now one more thing. When the light in your eyes is all you can see, yeah, the moon and the stars and the sky and the sea, yeah, they may shine bright, but they won't shine brighter than you and me.
Lois Lowe been a Canadian band for 30 years. So, I mean, in the Canadian punk rock and roll community, whatever you want to call it, you guys have had a pretty substantial impact. What do you feel the Low have brought out to everybody in the last 30 years as an overall feeling? And also, how has it changed your life? Like, how would your life be different if the Lowest of the Low didn't exist?
Okay, the first part of that question is, I mean, that's super flattering to say that. I think as day to day, I don't think of us primarily as a political band, and yet, who am I kidding? We have a song called "The Ballad of Late Era Capitalism," so it's it, I just find, and this is once again going back to me sort of talking about what a great songwriter Ron is that his songs, he's got such a way of getting to essential truths and bringing relatable personal things i- into wonderful focus. Whether or not he's bringing up a political point by telling a personal story, he does that from time to time. Or if we're just being straight up political and here's a list of grievances,
Right.
he always manages to put it in a very, very relatable way. Um, it isn't as though I don't feel it's as though that we've deliberately hooked up with other political bands and try to, go on crusades or anything like that. We're just in our corner doing our thing. We are all, read the news too much and have a lot of thoughts. And I really like the fact that we're able to bring that forward as, it's part of the world we live in. And it's these days, it's a very big, depressing part of the world we live in sometimes. So creating music that illustrates that or is a response to that or a balm against that, I think those are all valuable things. And I just feel
Yeah.
really lucky that we get to do that. I don't know if that's
Wow.
answering your question or not.
I was just going to say, you couldn't have answered more succinctly. That's awesome. Okay, so being a member of the band for a third of its occupation and knowing the band for the whole time, there's a two-part question that I'm asking everybody, and I'm just curious. You don't need to get too crazy with the answer, just if something comes to mind. The first part is, like Lowest of the Low have a history, being a great live band, great songs, catchy hooks, melodies, all that stuff. Professional performances, you've never been known as a bunch of drunks or anything like that.
Okay,
And you've also got you've got a fairly strong political punk sort of side to you as well, right? And that doesn't mean to say that all your songs are political, but if you write one political song, it's easy to become a political band.
sure.
Um, how do you feel, or what do you feel has been a band like Lowest of the Low's contribution to the music industry over the last 30 years? Like, what is it that you guys have done and left behind? And the second part of the question is, how has the band and sort of what the band has done influenced your life personally? Like where would you be if you hadn't come across the Lowest of the Low?
Well, first part first, I suppose.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just to me, it's just sort of a given that you would have some sort of element of like that. I don't know, like it's hard to say because I feel like most of the bands I've been in, if you've come up in anything remotely like I guess as we're like punk from that scene at all, which I definitely did. That was certainly the the catalyst or whatever for me wanting to do art was discovering that kind of music and those scenes and the early
Yeah.
hardcore scene and all that stuff. So I just feel like it just was like I didn't even think about the lowest politics or anything because I just knew it, like you just like it's just so ingrained and I don't think we would have got on together had it been radically different or
Yeah.
something like that. And they knew my scene from the Weaker Than, similar scene, like so. It's just something that I haven't really thought about and never really did think much about other because you just sort of do it, right?
Yeah.
Like it's just sort of there embedded into what you do daily and or with your art or whatever. And for me, that's where that kind of thing would be expressed. Like I don't find myself particularly good with words or driven to as a community organizer or anything like that. So I feel like the very least I could do is just at least be there as some sort of an element in an entity that is trying to have a positive, well, at least in our ideologies, a positive influence on the world at large, so that people can just have a place where they can oh, this seems like a really safe space for me to express myself or to be whatever, be part of the scene. And maybe you've had a shit day at work and you come to our shows and you can dance and have a beauty time, but also there's ideologies there that are interesting to think about or talk about. So it's a real pleasure, a privilege to be involved in things like that. Now, people I'll use Ron as an example, Lawrence too, they're quite well spoken about things like that.
As are you.
Yeah, well, I'm working on it, but it's yeah, that's what that to me, that's it's a pleasure and a privilege to just be up on the stage, uh, trying to provide an element of inspiration, I guess, or whatever for
Yep.
other humans out there. Um,
Punk, political, pop, singer-songwriter band. You've heard all the labels, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But the Lowest of the Low is one of those bands that has spawned across this country and beyond. I mean, I grew up in St. John's, Newfoundland, and I knew of the Low, and I know that they had an impact all the way to Vancouver. What do you think a band like Lowest of the Low has contributed to their 30-year contribution to the music industry, for the industry and for fans and for people and for, music and all of that stuff? What do you think it's brought to the table for everybody? And also for yourself personally, being in the band now for, almost a decade, what's it brought to your life that you think wouldn't have been there without the Lowest of the Low?
That's a very good question, Ken. I mean, the camaraderie of that band, as being somebody that's played in with Ian and, half the time it's just it's a laugh.
Yeah.
The Watchmen, I mean, you guys, every time you see each other, you probably just pick up where you left off. And it's just a constant kind of, thing of just fun, and it's just always a good hang. And it's just, to me, that's been a really, really very great part of my life, like those people, like, and it's been a very stable and loving and just fun and creative. And yeah, it's a very for a band that was very dysfunctional for a long time, it's a very tight family. Things are very diplomatic, and it's democratic, and it's yeah, like it's I mean, he's a very respected songwriter. I mean, I would put him up there. You know, I tell people all the time, like, you could put him on acoustic guitar with Elvis Costello, Paul McCartney, Billy Bragg,
Yeah.
you know, playing songs, Steve Earle, and his songs would not be out of place compared to all those people. And he would likely get the same reaction from the fans. Like, if anybody was watching, they'd be like, yeah, that guy is I really like those lyrics. I like what that song says. I like the chords in that. I like his melodies. You know, he does a lot of the heavy lifting for it, and the legacy of the band. You know, he's just one of those people that has that thing, and we kind of all ride on that. And you know, Ron and David are kind of the engine of the band, because those two have been playing together forever. So they have a thing, like, you know, doing these last two records, because I've mixed the last two Low records. And you know, we love the record that we made with David Bottrell. But this was like, my only kind of suggestion was like, we've got to capture like Ron and David playing together. I think that's the most important thing, is to capture, because those two have a thing. We all just follow those two.
Right.
Like, they kind of have their kind of their chemistry in their own language.
Yeah.
And but as far as the legacy, yeah, like, I mean, it's a different time now, right? Like, music is it's at such a crisis point. You know, there's a lot of people that can't afford to go to shows now. Like, everything is just, you know, every fucking show is, you know, $200, $300, $400. Like, you know, Ticketmaster being involved, and then you know, having to play their venues. And you know, we're trying not to price our fans out of anything and stuff, and we're not really going on big, you know, tours across the country. People are like, hey, can you guys come up to Vancouver? And it's like, we don't, you know, the band didn't broadly go up there tons out west. I mean, I think I saw Los to Low accidentally with seeing the Cadillac Tramps playing the Republic in Calgary, because I was living in Calgary for 2.5 years before I moved here. And they would have opened up, because I remember seeing like Cadillac Tramps seemed to play there all the time in Calgary.
Yeah.
Like, they probably did this thing where they would go to Vancouver. Like, if they did Canada, they probably go to Vancouver, make that drive, and go to Edmonton and Calgary, and then probably back down to the States. Like, or maybe the Low took them across Canada, you know, a few times and stuff. But yeah, the Low weren't like 5440, just slugging it out and getting that kind of radio play and that radio push, you know, from an American label in Canada, and be able just to go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. You know, that's maybe an unfortunate thing, that the band didn't have that opportunity. But it's kind of a hidden gem for a lot of people, that kind of get into the Low and just like, or they see us live for the first time by accident or something, or they end up at a show because, you know, somebody's a big fan. I find that all the time. Like, you know, there's, you know, I love the anonymity that I have as a sideman. I would not deal well with being famous. So that would just, I don't think that would be a very good thing for me. I like to be able to walk and, you know, and do whatever I do. But the odd time people kind of, you know, recognize me and say, oh, hey, I saw you guys played the Danforth. You know, that's awesome. You know, like, you guys are wicked. Like, I'm still glad Ron's still playing. And so it's great to hear that fans really, really like it. And, you know, people's kids are kind of getting into the band a little bit. Because we do see some younger people at the shows. Yeah, so yeah, it's been a great time. I mean, if I didn't like it, I still probably wouldn't be in it. Like if it wasn't fun, and there's a lot of laughs.
Lowest of the low, 30 years into a career. I mean, you guys have made an impact on the Canadian music industry. And, you have fans outside of Canada as well. But as a band, you guys have sold records, like I say, coast to coast. I've got a friend back home, even to this day, Tom Thorne is running a t-shirt company. And, one of their t-shirts is the lowest of the low poster from when you guys played in St. John's. And I can't remember what year it was.
Okay.
But like, you guys have crept into the culture everywhere, and it's an amazing thing to have happen over 30 years. Um, so what the two-part question is sort of, what do you think a band like Lowest of the Low over 30 years, what is it you've brought to the community? And by community, I mean the Canadian musician community, but the fans and the people and the radio listeners and everybody who's dug your music. What has the band brought out, and how has the band changed your life? And what impact did it have on your life, as in sort of, if you were to think the low didn't happen, where would I be now, sort of thing?
Yeah, well, no, I think I would be in trouble. I'd be in trouble creatively. Okay, so where do I start? First part of your question is how do I feel about any sort of impact we've had?
Mhm.
Well, I almost like taken aback sometimes when I meet people at shows and they express like how much, the band has meant to them over the years. And I think about bands that, I grew up with, and uh, The Jam and The Clash, REM, and on, who just like really uh, helped me identify who I was. And those are back in the day too, where everything was expressed through music, like the way you dressed and where you went and who you hung out with. And it's a lot more amalgamated now, but so I'm almost still like really taken aback that, and I can understand their feelings, like, because I've had those same feelings about music too. When somebody, talks about Bleed a Little While Tonight, or, so that kind of makes me feel more special than anything else, because
Mhm.
I know the impact that music has had on me growing up and going to clubs, and do it less so now, but still I know the feeling.
Yeah.
So just on a as far as community, I'm a bit outside of the community. Like I don't live where Ron lives in Parkdale. So
Right.
he hangs out with musicians the whole time, and every person he meets and in his kids' schools have always been musicians. I live in High Park area, and it's a lot of lawyers and bankers, and no one's heard of the odd person that's sort of low is the low. So we haven't really affected that community at all. But I also find a lot of times too, when I tell people what band I'm in, they've just never heard of it. So, but occasionally somebody will go like, "Oh, you got to be kidding me!" And then out come the stories of
Yeah.
everything they've done.
First part being, with the lowest of the low, 30 years, you've had a significant impact on the Canadian music scene and abroad. But I say Canada because that's prominently, sort of where Canadians work.
Mhm.
And over the course of the 30 years, what do you feel like the band has brought to the music scene and to the fans that have listened to it? Um, any terms that you want to use. And the second part of the question is, over the last 30 years, the work that you've done with the band, how has it changed your life, and what kind of an impact has it had?
Well, I think what we bring is an alternative viewpoint, a lot of it lyrically, but also it's informed musically and in the decisions we make. Simon had our front of house man made a documentary called Subversives, which is about the band. And it really spells out this arc of how the band has progressed. And some things that look like, back in the day, if you look at any one of them, it looks like, oh, they're just needlessly contrarian, or they, are just blowing up their career or whatever. When you see them all compiled together, you realize there's an arc that makes sense. It's a kind of a philosophy the band has, that we're kind of in the music industry, but we're not of the music industry. And we're trying to build a community in what I think is kind of a toxic environment, and the reason why what the low sort of became kind of Canadian famous, as my daughter likes to say, in the first place, it wound up blowing up because none of us felt comfortable being famous. I think it's just a toxic waste of time, and it cuts against what the real project is for us, which is to build a community, try to share our ideas about how the kind of world we'd like to live in and the kind of art we'd like to see people make. And I think that's an unusual thing. Certainly there are other bands who do it, obviously, but I mean, there are not, you can count them on most of your hands and toes.
Mhm.
Most people are just in it to become rich, famous, influencers or, whatever, that's never been a thing for me. And so what that's brought to me is, I think we were talking about this before we started the show, is that I think it's what has kept me sane, all these years, because I feel like a square peg in a round hole in this society in general. And art is the kind of thing that makes me feel like I have some control over something. And then I meet other people who it resonates with, and I go, okay, so I'm not insane. There are people who think the same kinds of things and actually want to see compassion in the world and stuff like that,